What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So it is that time of season once again when retail can pose questions to management for their upcoming earnings. So I'm going to go over the top ones so far and give you my true, honest thoughts, as what I always do. But before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So a couple things in case you are new to Lucid. Typically, Lucid management does answer roughly around 3 to 5 questions, depending on how bad they feel for us. But it does go based on the shares being voted on. So I organized it. And yeah, so I'm going to go over pretty much my thoughts on this. Leading into this, there was some things and some topics I stated that Lucid wasn't going to be able to talk on. And so it's kind of a waste of time to even pose questions. One is profitability. So Peter has clearly outright stated that profitability will not be coming until mid-size SUV, late 2026. And by me saying that one statement, it's kind of sad, but I do answer a lot of the questions just based on that. So Peter, they'll answer it, but they'll say exactly the same thing as what I stated. So it's very unfortunate about that. Same goes for the stock price. Peter, I think it was like 3 earnings ago, Peter was asked that and just said, hey, we have no correlation with the share price whatsoever. We can't influence it. And he's not lying, not at all. They can do things to improve it, but he's technically not lying. So that's another one. And then Gravity production numbers, they've already clearly stated that that's another one that they don't know. So without further ado, question number 1, Paul. So Paul actually, I believe he actually got a lot of his questions from last earnings answered, but with the share price still hovering near all-time lows, what do you have to say to the early investors that believed in the company and path? What do you plan to do to improve the share price as more funding is needed? Can you protect shareholder value? I will answer this one straight away. No, guaranteed. Any dilution, you can't. There's zero way shareholders can retain their value. That is regrettably, I clearly, Paul has a lot of shares and a lot of people clearly like him, like his questions, but I don't like this whatsoever, because all of this is just like that's the harm of investing. And based on Peter's last comments, when he said that shareholders kind of were being told that dilution was going to occur, he kind of pointed blame. I didn't like that. I brought that up in a video, but he is going to reiterate that same thing, be like, hey, we're going to continue to need capital up until profitability. And just so you know, probably that's going to be 2027, 2028. He won't say that. That's me saying that. So if you are trying to invest in Lucid, and this is just me once again speaking to you, if you are investing in Lucid and assuming no more dilution is happening, then probably Lucid isn't the right stock for you, because it is still a startup. It's going to be completely burning cash up until, like I said, 2027, 2028. So if you are expecting anything different, maybe once again, that's not the best. But question number 2, do you plan to offer more affordable vehicles? If so, what's the timeline? He's instantly, once again, going to talk on the mid-size SUV. So far 0 for 2 for good questions. This one, Paul, once again, he says, can you reach positive margin individually on Air or Gravity? What sales volume would be needed to achieve for this? So I actually kind of like some of this question for the most part, because it shows what is their future forecasted demand for the Air, for the Gravity. I personally feel, based on his last podcast, they're really putting all their eggs now in the Gravity. Air, yeah, it was a good kind of foundation for Lucid, but based on at least his tone, it shows that they aren't really betting on the Air being big. It is going to be the Gravity and then mid-size SUV. But I think this one is more of a good question as well. So what sales volume would be needed for each? I don't think that they're able to answer this, but this is a very good question. But what does the future of the company look like? That'll be a good opportunity for Peter to really just rant about technology and everything else associated to that. Jonah asks, can you elaborate on your roadmap for closing the gap towards profitability? When can we expect the cash burn to significantly slow? Still good question, but this should be posed probably second half of 2025, not right now. This one, I saw this one, in my opinion, should be number one instantly, posed by 𝗖𝗓𝗧. How does international expansion look? Do you plan to offer the vehicles in more countries? And regrettably, a lot of things did come up for work, so I wasn't really able to go through because I wanted to do a question or like a video all about very good questions to ask. And I actually, to be fully honest, I think looking back at the last earnings on stuff that they did not answer, that is what we should have asked. So moving over, this is all the questions from the Q2. Like I said, Paul got a lot of questions asked this time around. He's still at it. And I know I'm not here to spread FUD, but technically this is why I did a video during Q2, because the questions were equally as dumb during that time frame. I said, are these like employee planted questions? And if I was to make an educated guess, I would say, especially based on all this, Paul would be the employee. No offense to Paul or anything like that, but just statistically speaking, based on the questions I was asked and everything, like, I don't know how Paul somehow gets top priority, or maybe he is just very, very well connected. But aside from this, for those of you that remember the Q2 earnings, they abruptly stopped this at this question. This is one that needs to be asked in the Q3. So if and when will Lucid look at expanding into Europe and the UK and blah, blah, blah. And so this one was asked by Nadeem in Q2. So that one should be asked during Q3, in my opinion. That is what you want to know, not necessarily just profitability. What's your goals for kind of expansion? What is your plans for marketing? Because in case you guys didn't catch on, sounds like their marketing is crap, and Peter kind of knows it and is somewhat stumped by it. That's, once again, my interpretations. I like reading between the lines and just his tone. And that is all from his last podcast. And so ultimately, like, they're hedging on the Gravity just somehow selling itself. That is also another good question. Marketing, expansion and marketing. That is what we need to focus on, not so much profitability, not so much just this question about the stock performance. It's good, but that's all probably late 2025 types of questions. James does ask, what is the forecast for the next 5 years as far as production and deliveries and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, you know what? Lucid can't even guide on Gravity right now. So they will not be able to forecast for the next 5 years. So it's like, don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on these people's questions. I always like to play devil's advocate, and hopefully you guys appreciate my viewpoint on this. Sometimes, yeah, I maybe say things too blunt, but these are all good questions, but they are not right now. Lucid isn't able to accurately forecast that far in advance. They can't even do next quarter, basically. So very good question, but that is probably oriented for 2025. This individual, what are some of our future plans for the upcoming? That's already been asked. This one, he's just going to talk on that mid-size SUV. So what needs to be done in order for Lucid to truly be competitive with Tesla? So they're going to be talking on that mid-size. That's going to be direct competition. He stated that during the last podcast, so he's going to repeat himself for that. This one, 𝗖𝗓𝗧𝗛. Actually, did 𝗖𝗓𝗧 already ask that good question? Yeah, okay. So 𝗖𝗓𝗧, he's on point. 𝗖𝗓𝗧's thinking, whoever 𝗖𝗓𝗧 is, good job. But are you exploring any options on the autonomous front, even if it's just for licensing and stuff like that? That is literally perfect, because based on old articles, Peter did state that they want to do robo-taxis by, I think it was like 2029, 2030, somewhere around there. So since Peter kind of just in the last podcast started to talk on 2035 and stuff that far out, Yeah, that's a fair question to ask. What are you doing with autonomous driving? And for those of you that have been in Lucid as long as I have, you would know that the NVIDIA chip is going to be integrated in the Gravity, and that should open up autonomous driving. But we haven't really heard all that much. So this is a very good question for that. Alan, is there anything else besides selling cars? So I think that one's a good question. A lot of people are speculating only because the PIF is investing in, I think it's Lilium, LILM ticker, completely getting massacred on a side note right now. And actually, I'll just pop over here just so you know, LILM, Lilium. So yeah, oh, damn, down 61.5%. Yeah, this is a bloodbath. But regardless, the PIF is investing in them. And that is also, yeah, in reality, I think Peter just said like a one-liner in the past that they're look at airplanes and they do that type of sort. So I think that is a good question. I think it might be bigger than Lucid. It'd be more of a good question to be posed to the PIF because they're the ones that orchestrate kind of all the partnerships, right? They pretty much hold Lucid's hand and stuff like that. When are you going to promise more affordable cars to the public? That one is going to be answered through other questions. What are the chances of the Saudis buying out Lucid completely? Will Lucid go private? So that's a good question. They won't be able to answer that no matter what. Even essentially if they were going through being taken private right now, Lucid won't be able to talk on that at all. Because yeah, they can't openly disclose like that type of information during earnings calls, so they won't be doing that. Any update on the full self, so autonomous? Oh god, I knew it. There always has to be one Apple question, always one Apple question. But yeah, I think this far down, it is fair to assume that none of these questions below are going to be really asked or anything. But yeah, so far, my honest thoughts, I'm not really excited about these types of questions. We're not going to get anything. We're just going to get the salesman, or we can't talk on it. So yeah, it really does suck. Shout out to Skylar, whoever Skylar is. So definitely very good question. So if you guys are on here, I recommend you upvote Skylar's. So about the expansion, and then over here about the autonomous. They should not be this low on the totem pole. They should be number 1 and 2. No offense to Paul. And still, I don't know if these are planted or anything like that, but whatever. So be it. Let me know your thoughts on these questions. But yeah, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. 2 things, take advantage of this promo. It does give you 8 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. And then over and above that, I launched memberships. So if you want buy signals on stocks and options, definitely take a look at that as well. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.